Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Black Male Podcast. I'm your host, AP. Before we get started in today's show, how well do you know yourself? We're going to go ahead and just do a quick recap of the previous shows that I've done. Okay, we're going to talk about a couple shows that I did before about the power of no, about how important it is for us to find our voice and also to feel empowered when we use the word no, the positive and the negative sides of that. Then I covered progress versus process, how we go through different steps to get to where we want to be, to navigate through life or navigate through our career or navigate through our personal things to get to a certain place. Then I also covered perspective versus perception. So the last two shows were actually a blended show. It's a two-part. So the progress versus process and the perspective versus perception are actually supposed to be one show, but I split it up. And the reason why I split it up is because those are separate concepts, but they all are derived within the same notion. And it's going to derive with today's show, right? Do you know yourself? Okay. And when I say self, it's just SELF, right? Not yourself as one word, but self as one particular word by itself. Okay, so with the term today, the word self, we're going to define it, and then after we define, I'm going to break down where I'm going to go with today's show. Okay, so the definition of self is a person's essential being that distinguishes them from others, especially considered as the object of introspection or reflexive action. Okay, so that's one definition. Another definition is the concept or self-image of what a person is now, as opposed to what he or she would like to become. That is the ideal self, right? So with that definition, that does go back to the progress versus process and the perspective versus perception. Okay. How do I view myself right now? Where do I see myself and where would I like to be? Okay. Now, in the beginning, when we first started and we were growing up and we were learning things and we were doing things, we didn't know much about self because those things weren't taught to us, and in our world that wasn't generally our concern. But the one of the things that we do know and we do understand once we get older is how do we become an individual person and why is it important to be an individual person? Okay. Individuality is a big major part of the growing up process. Okay. Part of that individuality is for me to learn my voice, learn who I am, and learn what I would like to be in this life. Okay. Now, sometimes I'll get one crack at doing that. Sometimes I may get a couple different chances to do it. And then sometimes I might not get any chance. But the the idea is for me to be able to position myself where I know who I am holistically, but I also know where I would like to be. Right. So with me knowing and understanding who I am and where I come from, that is the beginning part. That's phase one of where I am. Okay. Phase two will be once I get a little older, I start to live through a few things. I have some experiences, and those experiences can be positive, negative. They can be very traumatic. They can be very successful, but it's all going to go in one particular pot. And once I become an adult, that's going to be the first part of me learning who I am. See, I really won't know who I am until I get to a certain phase or a certain state. Now, and with men and women, say a man doesn't fully mature until he's 25 and up. Okay. A woman was basically considered mature at 18 based on, the mental makeup of both individuals. Now, a man's brain is not fully developed until it's 25, and a woman's brain is developed at 18. So therefore, a woman has more of an advantage of becoming self-reliant and more self-aware of who she is at a certain point and earlier based on who she is and her DNA makeup. A man is going to take more because of how his life is going to be structured and also the social norms and rules that he's going to go through as well. So with knowing those two things and knowing who you are, how would you view the beginning part or where you are in your life, and how do you know your actual self? Now, knowing your actual self is going to be a process with that, but it's also going to be a certain perspective that you're going to look at and look back on yourself, is knowing who I am, what I want to be, and where I would like to be. All right. Now, case in point, everyone wants to be successful. Everyone wants to be in a certain way. Everyone wants everything to go the right way and there to be no problems, no issues, right? But you cannot get to a certain point in your life without going through some sort of trauma, some sort of tragedy, some sort of significant event that will allow you to grow and to prosper, right? Now, so we think about the phoenix, the bird, right? Now, phoenix is a bird that rose from the ashes, right? So it had to shed and go through a very traumatic experience in order to be reborn and be rebuilt into this new creature that will flourish. Now, when you go through those traumatic incidents and you go through those particular things that you go through, how do you come out on the end? There's only two ways you can come out. You either can learn from it and grow from it, or you will just not know anything and you will think that everything is okay. Now, hindsight is okay, depending on what the situation is or how I have benefited or how I come out of that situation is what I'm going to learn from that. And what I learned from that is how am I going to be different or better than I am right now. See, we get in these things where we think about where we are and where we want to be, and sometimes we forget where it took us or how we got where we are at this point. Okay, some of us have gotten that through survival skills, and those survival skills, and it's good to have those because that innately is who you are at this point in time. Now, when you get to a different segment or a different part of your life, of course, you don't want to have to continue to do those things that you're doing right now. You want to progress and be a little bit better at different things or at life at where you are. Okay. With knowing that and with being that, you want to be further along in your journey. And with being further along in your journey, that just means once you're like that bird, the phoenix, then you can arise. And then I know what I am. I'm a shining, gleaming light, a beacon. You can see me. Everything is going from there. And I also know I have some sort of self-worth, right? Now, because back to the idea of the definition is I know of my self-image of who I am, okay? And let's talk about self-image and self-concept. Well, most of all, let's talk about self-esteem, right? Self-esteem, self-image, and self-concept is something that can be placed on me by someone else based on labels, but it's also what I place on myself, okay? Now, there are certain demographics and certain groups in our world where they are consistently talked about, they're consistently put down, they're consistently just put in a negative light, right? And those also that same demographic that is shined on by other people as a beacon to see who they are, and they would like to assimilate and be just like those folks. Now, when they're trying to be like those folks, it doesn't mean that they're trying to actually live that life. What they want to do is they want to have that love and that appreciation that those people go through. Now, with going through that, there's a positive and a negative to that. The positive is the things that I see and how I perceive that everything is for them. The negative part about that is how I'm going to live that life and see what it is that they go through. Okay? Case in point. If I want to be an entertainer and I go through every leap and bound and valley to go ahead and live that life and have everything I want, and then I find out my way to success, my path to success, and I do everything it is, and I see myself as this big ventured person that I can go ahead and do that, but the outside doesn't see me in that manner, and then I get the negative reflection from that, I'm going to start to believe that that's who I really am. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's who I am, but that just means that what is placed on me by that label consistently is going to wear on me. It's going to make and change the way I view myself. If I myself am not in tune with myself, which I covered before about your emotional intelligence, or mentally of how I see myself, right? Because when we have these labels placed on us, sometimes those labels, depending on who's giving it to us and where we hear it from, it can make or break us. Now, we've heard before about words don't hurt, but words hurt, and they only hurt depending on who's giving it to us. And with certain people giving us those words and those labels, that will go ahead and make us feel a different way about ourselves. Because sometimes it's not about what they say, it's how they say it as well. And when things come to us, it depends on how they deliver it to us, is whether we're going to accept it, we can learn from it, or we're going to bow down and we're going to just sulk in where we are. Okay. But that idea of myself with those labels that are placed on me are very important for me to know and see where I am. Now, me as an African American man in my life right now, I know I have lived through a lot of things, very good, very bad, some traumatic, some, miscellaneous, right? I know where I am right now. Could I say that I am where I want to be? No, not at all. And I'm going to tell you why. Because every chapter of your life, you want to do something better. No one wants to do the same thing or see themselves in the same light. You're not going to be viewed in the same light by everybody as well. That's why some of those who are out there and they see you, they're going to either denigrate you or they're going to praise you. But even with those who praise you, you have to take that with a grain of salt, because it depends on the reason why they're doing it. You want to make sure that people who are praising you are not doing it for their own personal benefit or gain. Now, someone out there may think that, well, why would I waste my time worrying about what they say? They say I'm good and they say I'm this. But you have to understand, take everything with a grain of salt, because sometimes those same people, when it's time, on the other foot, when it's a negative connotation coming towards you, they're the first one to put the knife right in your back. You always have to keep that in mind. But with keeping that in mind is, I know what I am to myself. Okay? There's certain people that are out there that don't care what anybody thinks, feel, or say about them. And when you get that, that is complete liberation. That's actually some song lyrics from Outkast, all right, and their song Liberation. You can't worry about what someone else thinks about me, because that's liberation. That's not exactly words, and I don't want to say exactly words what it is, but if you listen to the song Liberation by Outkast, that you will hear those lyrics in that song. And that entire time in that song right there is about, they're talking about themselves. Now, a lot of people want to go ahead and say these things about you, and they're going to say some things about you, and they're going to say some things that you may like, some things that you don't like. But will that make or break you or who you are? It shouldn't, but sometimes it does, depending on who it is. Case in point, let's think about the people that are the closest to us, because sometimes the people that are closest to us are the ones that cause us the most grief, the most pain. Okay, I just recently had a conversation with someone, and they said when they were growing up, it was very hard for them because their parents always said something very negative to them and never saw them in a positive light. Now, what that did was make them run and do certain things and run away and live a life outside of that. Now, when they have come back home, now they're praised and they're looked at like, you made it, you did all this. But what kind of hell did I go through to get there? See, that tells me a lot about myself and knowing not my struggle, but my process to get where I am, right? Because a lot of people are going to struggle different ways, but some people get to that same common ground, and you're going to have the same type of people that are going to understand exactly where you are and what you're trying to do. Those people you want to hold close to you because they see who you are. Sometimes people can put you down because they know your worth, and they don't want you to know or figure out your worth. And it's better to keep you down because it makes them feel good about themselves, that they can affect you in that way, right? But all that's going to do is just make you either sour, and sometimes it may make you rebel. But what it also doesn't do is it doesn't get you to see where you are and who you are. Okay? No one sets out to be or have the things go wrong or have things negatively impact them the way that they do. But when you have those things negatively impact you, what it does is it messes with your mental. It also messes with you physically. It will mess with you emotionally. And those things will then tear you down within your spirit and how you see yourself. And then it will make you feel different about yourself. Okay? If I have an unhealthy way of viewing myself, then I'm going to think every negative thing. I'm going to think that everything negative that someone says about me is true. I'm going to start living it, but I'm going to start believing it after I hear it a certain amount of times, right? I will frequently put myself down. I will think that I'm not worthy of anything. I'm going to think of disregard any compliments that will come my way. I will just think I'm just this horrible, bad person. And sometimes if that is something that you have done yourself and that you're not doing, or if you're currently doing that, I'm going to tell you, you are more than what someone tells you right now. It's just going to take you time for you to find out who you are and your voice of where you are so that you can be a more productive, positive person for yourself. Okay? Now, living your life, you're going to live your life for yourself. And sometimes we get into this space where we want to live our lives according to how other people see it, or I was raised in a certain way, and because of my last name, I need to live this way. No one can tell you how to live your life. In order for you to live your life and be happy, you're going to find different ways to have that happiness and have that peace within yourself that you're going to be able to live and live free mentally and emotionally. To know who your true self is. And knowing who your true self is I am comfortable being where I am. I'm also comfortable being in the space that I am. I'm more than comfortable of knowing this is where I am, this is what I want, and this is where I see myself. That right there is the point of that song, Liberation. Now, I got a little taste of that. I'm going to get a little more, but I like the way it feels. Because the way it feels is, I know some people would like to be around, and that's fine. And some people don't want to, based on how they view me talking to them, or how they view me in our relationship with each other. And that's okay. But on the tail end of that, they don't understand I have that same perspective and my perception of them and the way that they are and the way that they talk and the way that they treat. See, all these things are going to blend together, right? Because it is a way for us to know and understand who our true self is, okay? If we are to learn who our true self is, the first thing we have to do is unlock the story of our life or of ourselves, okay? Some things I have to accept. I have to accept if I didn't come from a good home. I have to accept if I didn't have a good upbringing. I have to accept if I just had the worst childhood or the worst adolescent time, or the beginning of my adulthood is real crappy. I have to accept that, because part of growing is the acceptance. Okay. Once I accept where I am, how do I fix it? But I have to be honest with myself in order to fix those things. And when I say honest to myself, I mean I really need to dig deep down to see where I am and where I would like to be. You know, the most personal time that you will have to yourself is when there's no one else around, when you're alone with your thoughts. And sometimes you may consider yourself or think about yourself drifting, like you will have some drifting thoughts. And sometimes you may catch yourself even speaking to yourself. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing wrong with speaking out loud, because sometimes you may have to hear things out loud so they're not running back and forth in your mind. But what you're doing is you're trying to piece those things together so they make sense. That's what you're trying to do. So when someone says it's bad that you're talking to yourself, trust me, there's plenty of people who talk to themselves. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to put out there in the open, because they need to hear what their thoughts are so that they can go ahead and plan further on down the line, right? So I want to have that. I need to silence the negative talk that I have either about me or that I'm putting on myself. Now, who knows someone or a couple people, or this may be you, someone who continuously says, I'm no good, I'm a bad person, nobody loves me, nobody wants me around. Right, because someone has placed that seed in their head, and they continuously say that. Let's think about an old movie like Matilda. Now, I'm going to say this because it applies. So the dad in Matilda just kept putting her down, putting her down, putting her down. And one of his favorite lines, or his consistent lines, was, I'm big, you're little. And he used to call her stupid all the time. If she believed that, she wouldn't have got to the power that she was to know who she was and have her voice to stand up for herself. Right? And when she got to a certain point, she fought back. Now, in your life, you're going to come to a pivotal point in your life where you're going to fight back. And with you fighting back is not just with your fists, but with your actions. Right? I'm going to tailor my actions based on how I see myself and where I want to be, but also who I put myself around. Think about some fruit. If you have one bad piece of fruit, it's going to affect the other fruit that are around, right? Case in point is, if I'm in a group of people and one or two of those people are bad seeds, and they like to put in negative doubt and negative self-talk and a whole bunch of other stuff out there, I'm going to start believing that. I'm going to start believing that, oh, that's a sign of appreciation, love, and respect, and I have to listen. I don't have to listen to that. I don't have to listen to that from anybody. Once you know that I don't have to listen to this and I have the power not to listen to whoever is saying these things about me, you begin to take the power away from them, right? Then you start to change the game about who you are and how you feel about yourself. Then those things that you have, especially if it's a spouse or a significant other, because sometimes those folks, they are major players when that comes, because they see something in you that they want to hold on to, because they know themselves they can't measure to the person that you are. That is powerful. And sometimes when they see the power and the light that you have, they want to dim it because their light isn't bright. Because someone has dimmed their light, or not even given them the opportunity to see what type of person they could become. In the past, people have done that based on where they are. Okay. So sometimes you can have someone say, you're not going to be anything because I'm not anything, because nobody has ever poured into me. So I'm not going to pour into you, and you're going to have that same life. If you want to think back about this movie, Lean on Me, a long time ago with Morgan Freeman. If you remember the part when he was the principal and the assistant principal went into the home of the little girl, right? And the mom was in there. She said she don't want her anymore. And the reason why she said is because I'm not nothing and she's not going to be nothing, because she found out that they found out that the girl was pregnant, right? So she was a young mother. Now her daughter's becoming a young mother, in the same life that the mom had. She's projecting that the daughter's going to have that same life. That is that negative self-talk and that negative pouring into someone, because what she's going to believe is that nobody cares about her, no one loves her, because it all comes from how I live my life. And if I want to change anything, it's my responsibility to change the way I see things. It's my responsibility to change how I view myself. It's also my responsibility to change how other people see me as well. Now, that might be considered being a little arrogant. Sometimes that may be considered being a little nonchalant. It also can be being very negative as well. But that's their perception of you. And it shouldn't matter. Because once you get to a certain point in your life, it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter at all what anyone says to you. Now, they're going to continue to feel that way about you, but the ones that really care about you, that's what matters, right? The first person that you should care about who thinks about something about you is yourself, right? Because the way I see myself is more important how anybody else sees me. And once you get to that point, then you'll be better off. You're going to start living a lot freer. You're going to start doing a lot of things for yourself. And you're not going to worry about what people are doing that really don't matter at this juncture in your life. Now, that may be a sign that you're going to go away from those people and you're breaking away from them because you see yourself and you see things differently than they do. And that's okay. Sometimes you grow up from people and sometimes you grow away from people. And that's a positive step, right? Now, you also have to know and recognize what doesn't serve you. Now, what that means is what doesn't serve me, what doesn't place for me, and what is not in my best interest to be something or where I want to be in my particular life or status, right? I mentioned a few minutes ago about a significant other or a spouse saying something very negative. If you were ever married before and that marriage ended, or even if you still are married and you're living with someone and you feel like you cannot live with this person, it's because this person says or they live a certain way. Let me just tell you right now, okay? Communication is something that two people need. It's not just you listen to me and I get to talk. That's not how that works. The main thing is for two people to talk, two people to be able to get their voice out, because I want your individual self to be heard and you're going to hear my individual self, okay? But sometimes what some folks like to do, they like to pull who you are and yourself away from who you innately are. They want to conform and make you be something completely different than who you are. Here's the point. Why would you even want to be around someone that wants that, to have that type of life with you? And why would you want to be with someone that sees you in that light? Because they want to dim that light because, like I said, their light is not that bright as well because someone dimmed their light as well. Okay, that's going to lead to an unhealthy view of yourself. And that unhealthy view of yourself is going to make you not feel proud or feel happy. You're not going to take care of yourself. You're just going to be disheveled and you're going to want to not do anything. You're going to want to stay in this rut and you're going to put up with anything that they say or anything that they do. And you're going to think and mask that and say, well, they love me or they care about me or they're here for me. A lot of us that have lived in this life, we know that that's not what it is. Only when you get a true sense of what love is, or where that is going, or how someone can actually love you and be around you, or even have a healthy, friendly relationship with someone, you know what that is. Some of us that have friends since we were little kids, you know there's a growing process. There's ups, there's downs, but there's the main thing that's with that is respect. With that respect, I have a respect for who I am. I have a respect for who that person is. But respecting myself first, I know that I can respect someone else. That's like having self-love and loving yourself and loving other things. If I don't have these things innately with myself, there's no way I can do it or have it for someone else. It's not going to work. With me knowing who I am right now, or knowing who I was, part of that process of being on the tip of the iceberg, not knowing where I am, thinking that I made a change, but the shit that's still around me is still there because it's going to be there because I'm on this upward climb to now look back on the progress of where I am, because my perception is that I'm a lot better than where I am, no matter what anyone sees or no matter where they saw me before. But where I'm headed is somewhere continuously on a better route because I like this feeling. This is giving me something I need. This is helping me become a better person. I like this person that I am. I'm able to be free of the things that I was like that was holding me back before. And those things that were holding me back before was because I allowed someone to dictate that to me. Someone that should not. Someone I thought either cared about me, loved me, or was there for me. And all they did was see me for who they knew I was, or they saw me based on what they wanted, and they wanted to hold on to it because It was more important to hold on to me and not allow me to grow and keep me festered with them, as opposed to allowing me to spread my wings and be something greater than what I am at this point. As part of that progress, but also part of that process that you're going to go through to find out who you are, to find out where you are, and also to find out where you want to be. So to get to where you want to be and to get to the person that you like, where you're comfortable with yourself, it's going to be a give and take. There's going to be a lot of trial and error. Some people that feel that they make it, it's a daily grind. You're never completely where you really want to be until you get to a certain part of your life. And when you get to that certain part of your life, you breathe a little easier. You see life a little clearer. Your thoughts are even clearer. Even the way you accept things or you tell things or when you let them off, they're completely different. People will see you in a different light. You have a different light shine around you because you do not appear to be the same type of person that you was before. Because that light that you have right now, I can tell you're happy. I can tell you're in a better place. I can tell these positive things that you've done or whatever you've taken a change or really putting an emphasis and a different light on you. When you get those things and when you see those things about that and you know that about yourself, that makes it that much easier for you. And when you make that much easier for you, no matter what relationship it is, no matter what type of job you have, no matter where you are in your life, things will continue to go upward and move forward. Now, once you know that foundation and you know those principles and you have those things where it's going to set you up for success, if you have a roadblock, that doesn't mean that everything's going to stop. That just means sometimes instead of walking over something, I may have to walk around it. But that means I'm in tune with myself. And sometimes that's going to mean I need to navigate away from a couple different people, or maybe a situation that may not be good for me, that I may have thought was good for me in the beginning, but is not right now. And with not having that's good right now, that's making me feel that I still have some growing to go. I still have some growing to do. That's part of me looking and being honest and being truthful with who I am, to have a better version of myself, and to be true to myself. Because once I identify my values become my norm, right? I identify who I want to be, right? When I identify who I want to be, then I have a basis and a status, right? That's my progression, okay? I'm going to live my life with integrity. I'm going to change some things that I want to do. I'm going to start looking at things a little different. I'm going to start speaking a little different. I'm going to have different people around me because I'm going to see, it doesn't mean that I'm better than anybody. That just means the things that I was doing before, I'm going to put that away because I see where it led me and I see what it did to me, right? So these things and knowing these things about myself will emotionally impact me. And if these things emotionally impact me, what that can do is it can mess with my mind, but it also mess with my spirit. And what that will do is that will make me crumble on the inside. It will also, kind of like a sickness, it will compromise my immune system. And with compromising my immune system, what that will do is that will make it hard for me to go any further. I won't have any progression at all. I'll think that everything that I'm doing is just where I should be and where I should be talking about, right? I also need to communicate honestly. Communicating honestly doesn't just mean with other people. I need to communicate honestly with myself, okay? That means keeping it real. So at a certain time in our lives, we say, keep it real with me. Okay, humans don't want to know the truth, okay? It's hard for humans to accept the truth, especially when it comes from certain people, right? I touched on this earlier, so let me dive deep into this, okay? Depending on who this is and depending on who it comes from, right? The message is the message, but the way you deliver the message or the way you receive the message is also important. More important than what the message is in itself, because you're either going to learn and grow from it, or you're going to sit there, soak, and you're just not going to do anything. Case in point, if I invited you out to dinner, right? And we went to this fancy restaurant. We went out for steaks and we went out for everything. We're sitting there talking and everything was good. And they brought my food out. Nice, delicate steak out there on my plate. Everything looks good, good garnish. Bring my drink, everything like that. You ready for yours. You rubbing your hand, everything look good. They bring your food, same everything, but they put yours on a garbage can lid. You're going to feel so upset about that. What you're also going to do is you're going to feel as though someone is playing with you. You think that you deserve more than what you got. And you're right. You do. But it's the way that someone did that to you. It's also the way that someone presented that to you. Now, with that presentation, what that does is that makes things easier or harder for you, depending on who it is and how they did it. Right? Now, with them presenting it that way, and depending on who it is, it's going to be how I see myself. When I see those things, I need to go ahead and make sure I can practice self-care. And with practicing self-care is, how do I innately take care of myself and my thoughts and my feelings and my emotions, even when I'm at my lowest? Because there's going to be a low point that everybody comes to, because we are human. We are going to hit that low point, right? But with hitting that low point is, where are we going to rebound? How are we going to rebound? And what is it going to take for us to get to there? Sometimes it's going to take a while to rebound, depending on what we're going through, depending on what was said to us. But we have to learn to manage those emotions. We learn to manage those emotions. We're going to know and accept that it's okay to feel the way I feel right now, because this has something to do with me. So I'm a work in progress, right? Everyone's a work in progress. That's what we do, right? We're working ourselves. We're getting ourselves to a place of where we want to be. And we're getting that place we want to be. There's going to be some highs, some lows, some peaks and valleys, all of this stuff, right? And it's going to be where we need to be more self-confident about who we are, but more important, where we want to be. Okay? I'm going to leave you with this final note. Okay? Being yourself means that you like who you are. Being yourself means living with how you are, but also being that way regardless of how others see you. Okay? That is true liberation. That is also the best form of knowing who you are and of knowing your SELF, yourself. Know yourself, love yourself, take care of yourself, take care of your mind, take care of your emotions, manage your emotions, be honest with yourself, have some self-confidence. If you don't know what that is, read a book, talk to someone, get somewhere positive where it can help you out, because knowing and being in those places, when you do hit that hard time, you know what you can do, because those hard times have built a survival person out of you. And those who have made it out of some things, you know who you are and you know what you have made it out of. And with knowing where you made it out of has also allowed you to know what you're capable of. Okay? Know yourself, love yourself. But if you know yourself and you love yourself, you'll be a better version of yourself than anybody could ever accept, including yourself. Okay? This is AP for the Black Male Podcast. And as always, be good to yourself.